Key concept review for Lesson 2, Fair Housing Issues. Again, what we're going to do here is, again, go over the key concepts that were discussed in Lesson 2, and we'll drill down a little deeper and explain them a little bit more in depth. We did talk about the Civil Rights Act of 1866. As we said before, it prohibits discrimination based on race in the purchase, lease, or transfer of real and personal property, actually, without any exception. Can't do it. Federal Fair Housing Acts of 1968. Again, there's a number of these acts. You don't have to know them. We just lump them and call them Federal Fair Housing Acts. There's a number of different ones that have added protected classes along the way. Not necessary to know the different names of the acts or the years they were adopted. The Act prohibits discrimination in advertising services associated with residential transactions. And so we have to be careful of how we advertise our property so we don't inadvertently exclude protected classes. The Federal Fair Housing Act does give some exemptions to it. We've discussed these earlier. The 1 to 4 unit owned property where a owner is also an occupant of one of those units technically can discriminate, but not because of race. They can't use illegal discrimination, advertising, and they can't use a real estate broker. If they fall under those requirements, then they technically can discriminate against individuals wanting to rent one of their units in the 4 units, one of which they occupy, but not because of race. Also, another exemption are private clubs and organizations. An example might be, let's say we have a Jewish assisted living center, and one of the men there at the assisted living center has a friend and says, "Hey, we have an opening over here. Why don't you come over and apply for one of our units?" And as his friend does, turns out he's a Methodist. And so he's denied a unit at the Jewish Assisted Living Center because of religion. That would be allowed. And then, of course, the other one is the senior housing, where if 100% of all the tenants that sign the leases are 62 or older, that can qualify for senior housing, and then you could deny individuals with children. Provisions related to familial status are just what I've said there. That's that exemption where if 100% of the tenants are 62 or older, then they're exempt. And that's what I would know for this one. I forget the 55 for right now. The HUD is responsible for administering the Federal Fair Housing Acts. And as I said before, the Illinois Human Rights Commission enforces the Illinois Human Rights Act. Key violations, we talked about steering, channeling, can't do that. We discussed block busting on a couple of occasions. ADA is, again, we mentioned a couple occasions, is protections for the disabled in public accommodations. Owners have to make reasonable accommodations to their rules and policies and services to afford equal opportunity to the disabled. Support dogs must allow it if someone comes in with they should call that a service animal that comes in. You can't deny that individual, let's say, that is sight impaired because you have a no pet policy. Service animals, support dogs, if you will, are not considered pets, and they don't fall under the restrictions of any animal policy that you might have. All right, so if you would, you can now continue on to the lesson 2 quiz.